Hi everyone, welcome to our 64th video session. Today we're joined with Mark and Devika from Envirometrics. But before we get started, let's introduce what we do at Impactionable and the purpose of these video sessions in the first place. So Impactionable's mission is to help people find jobs, networking opportunities like this, and also funding opportunities for their ideas in the social impact space. These video sessions are ways that our community members can meet each other face to face and learn and grow and help support each other, and whether they're having businesses or whether they have other leadership sort of initiatives of their own. So I'm very excited for to have Mark and Devika here today. But before we introduce them, let's introduce ourselves in 2 sentences or less. So I'll start. I'm Shivani Choksi. I'm the CEO of Impactionable, based out here in Chicago, Illinois. I also work in the public education sector at Chicago Public Schools as a budget analyst. So I'm going to ask Priya. Priya, thank you for turning on your camera. If you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Priya. This is my first time joining this session. Looking forward to talking to everybody. I'm based in New York. I work as a vice president in Citibank, and I'm really still educating myself to creating that social impact.
Amazing. Thanks for joining, Priya. And can I ask, how did you find out about this session?
Oh, through Eventbrite. So I was looking for a sustainable food industry events going on, and that's how I came across it.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you. Bella, do you want to go next?
Sure. So my name is Maribel Rodriguez, and sorry, my video is not on right now, but I'm the founder of Love for Immigrants. And Love for Immigrants is a community supporting immigrants. It aims to connect immigrants to their communities through art and storytelling specifically. So watch out for our 2021 exhibit.
Yep, and she's one of our partners too. So thanks for joining, Belle. So today we're going to speak to Mark Gilroy and Devika Pathak, who are founders of Envirometrics, a Canada-based company on a mission to bring carbon footprint transparency in the consumer market. Their vision is to help people understand their carbon footprint, starting with restaurant menus with the help of researchers and carbon data of various food items. In this video session, Mark and Devika are going to talk about the progress, the vision, the pilot project of Envirometrics, and how to create a sustainable lifestyle by knowing our carbon footprint. So Mark, Devika, if you have any more information that you would love to share about yourselves, please do. And if not, feel free to move on to the presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Devika.
I'm Mark.
And we are here to present Envirometrics to you and talk about climate change and how the food we eat contributes to our carbon footprint. Before we proceed, I would like to share my screen and show through a video what we are doing. So let me present my screen to you.
I just want to do a quick introduction. I'm sure everyone on here is familiar with climate change and the importance, but I was looking for a quick summary to give to anyone who might listen in. And there's a NASA Kids website where they gave a description of climate change as a change in the usual weather found in a place. This could be change in how much rain a place usually gets in a year, or it could be a change in a place's usual temperature for a month or a season. Weather can change in just a few hours. Climate usually takes hundreds or even millions of years to change. So the current status of climate change is that the Earth has already warmed 1.2 degrees, Celsius, sorry, 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit. And I might as well go to the next slide because that gives a little bit better representation of that. If we could, there we go. And here we see at the pre-industrial average is at 0. We're here like I say, about 1.2 degrees Celsius, 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit. The Paris Agreement goal is just above that. And then even further up, we see based on our current policies, we expect the climate to change by 2.3 to 4.1 degrees by year 2100 based on our current policies. Obviously, currently we're experiencing droughts, heat waves, wildfires, hurricanes, shrinking Arctic sea ice, sea level rising, and ocean acidification, just to name a few of the results of this. But it also, in the future, it's going to have impact affecting things like food security. And as an example, up to 183 million people worldwide, particularly those with lower incomes, are at risk of hunger as a result of climate change over the next 90 years. So there's a significant impact for a large number of people. You want to go to the next one, Devika? So this is the impact that you can have. And the first slide, I just have the Canadian example since we have such a wide audience. So we do this twice, but in Canada, the average carbon footprint is 15.69 tons of carbon equivalent in 2019. The Paris targets is to reduce that by 6 tons. And as you can see on the slide, eating lamb has 40 kilograms of carbon equivalent to eating a kilogram of lamb, compared to tomatoes and lentils, where you have a relatively small footprint on the right. So that's the kind of impact that people can have changing their diet. And if we go to the next slide, it'll just, I think we just update it with the terminology with the American numbers for our lovely US audience. And so the average American footprint is actually a little better, 15.52 tons, and the government target is 2.8% reduction per year. So as a result of changing your food, and this will go on to the next slide where it'll be more evident, but just by changing your diet, and I'll hand this over to Devika, just by changing your diet, you can reduce your, we can get a third of the way towards those Paris goals just from people changing their diet. So go ahead, Devika.
Thank you, Mark. So basically, our concept is get the life cycle assessment data of all the food items, build a database with that data, and then based on that information, estimate the carbon footprints in each and every restaurant project. And then present that information to consumers, government, and businesses so that they can keep a track of that information and they can perform measures or activities to neutralize it or minimize it. And this is what we are working on. We will be asking restaurants to put their recipe information, then provide the carbon emission information in their menu products, give them a comparison dashboard for each and every item in their in each and every recipe, and then it will actually give the customers an opportunity to see, track, and take action based on the carbon emission data. So currently we worked with Canadian government. We are also looking to expand our product to the US. We worked with Dr. Kivani at the Dalhousie University, Canada, and we asked for the life cycle research information. She's a researcher there. And then we collected the data, we built our initial version of the model, and to assess the carbon footprint information. We also are looking to work with media. Our story was picked up by local media channel last year. So we are also looking forward to work with media in future, so that we can generate more awareness and create an environment where more and more people come and join us in our mission. So I will pass the control back to Mark to talk about our pilot project.
Okay, so this is an actual menu that was put into a restaurant. If you look at, as an example, the spinach pie, you can see it has 0.88 kilogram of carbon equivalent for the meal. And we have the green sticker, obviously, showing that has a very light impact. And you compare that below it to the cottage pie, it has a 4.61 kilogram equivalent carbon emission. And so you can see that, 0.88 compared to 4.61, that just by changing your meal choice, you can reduce your carbon emission on that meal by about 75%, give or take, probably a little bit more than that. And so this is a way partly to educate people, because I think people aren't aware of this information, and it also allows them to change their decisions. Also, we can, if the restaurant, depending on the restaurant, they could work on trying to lower the carbon intensity of the meals that they actually provide. So if if you can substitute items that lower the carbon intensity without making any real change, significant change to the meal, and that they could do that. So that's what we're demonstrating here. And then in addition to that, we provided some information, sort of like something you'd see on a wall at a fast food restaurant. I guess it depends on where you live. If you want to go to the next two items, Devika. And so just to give people more context too, if they want to look into it, we've already shown everyone here the one on the right, the full life cycle gas emissions. You can see the lamb and the lentils. That gives people a little bit of perspective. But the one on the left, the reporting, gives you the broader perspective. So if you look down on in 2017, the part where we mentioned that, we say the average Canadian had a carbon footprint of 19,500 kilograms. And as part of our Paris commitments, Canada needs to reduce our carbon emissions by 6,750 kilograms. Just by changing your diet, you can reduce it by 2,100 kilograms. So about a third of the Paris Agreement targets could be met by, in theory, that changing someone's diet could have that much impact. So I guess, yeah, we can go on to the secondary benefits. I should keep it moving. Sorry. Some quick secondary benefits are the consumer choices will lead to industry starting to try to target this issue. So industry can make choices about their suppliers or their products that reduce carbon emissions. And that eventually that can become a competitive advantage, because I think it's going to be so challenging that companies will have serious expectations to reduce that. So it could be a competitive advantage. More demand for local, because there's an element of the carbon calculation, that's the transportation of goods and transporting goods all over the world, that has an impact. In addition to that, there's health benefits of people eating better. Often eating green can improve that, and it also saves money in terms of healthcare costs. Depending on the healthcare system you're in, here in Canada, it's a savings for taxpayers. So that has a public policy impact. So going to the next one. I think. And then just quickly on our team, we have lots of people with lots of letters. I don't want to belabor the point, but we have some engineering talent, and of course, Devika is doing great work on reaching out and contacting people, and so that's our team. I think, is the next one you, Devika? The next slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in short, to summarize this, that we are building an ecosystem of people who are environmentally conscious, government who is ready to fight climate change, and large businesses who are ready to incorporate the carbon emission like reduction into their system to fight climate change. The opportunities that this product can be used are for our it can be used to collect data. We can build dashboards. We can be used in ERP modules and do supply chain optimization. And then it's a unique vision that we are bringing into life, where we are trying to create transparency in the consumer market. It's showcasing people that they can, like, by making some changes to their lifestyle, they can seriously contribute to uh, the betterment of our environment. They can cause they can help support our fight in climate change, and they can help neutralize their carbon footprint information. So this is a short summary of what we are trying to do. Other sources that where we took our statistical data from. And then now we are open to questions. Thank you so much for joining us for this session today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. You guys are doing amazing work. I do have questions, but I want to open it up to the community first, and then I'll ask my questions later. So go for it. Go for it, Priya.
Hi, thank you, Mark and Devika. Definitely, your hard work shows, and it's an incredible product that you're putting out in the market. So definitely kudos to that. Very interesting, Mark. When you were talking through the factors, I'm just curious. What are some of the input factors that are main input factors into calculations of the carbon footprints? So what are some of the factors that you're using?
Sure, and that's the life cycle analysis, which is a very it's an amazingly complex process where they go through every, as an example, if you were a tomato farm or the chicken farm, they go through every aspect of how the farm operates, where it gets its electricity, the type of materials used in the building, the materials that they use to put into the field, the fertilizer. So it's a complete analysis, and it's a complete engineering, which I'm not an engineer, so I can't speak, specifically to some of those issues, but it's a complete one word I've heard is cradle to gate analysis of the processes that go on to create that product. So they really look at everything and come up with a calculation. So it's an engineering, and there's an engineering LSO standard. I can't remember the or ICO, sorry, I think is the terminology. So there's actual engineering standards around this that are used to create these analysis. And so that maybe I'm talking too long here, but does that answer your question? Or
Yeah, no, that helps. I was just curious if it's like an application that you feed more data into, like you said, these parameters, and whatever the parameters are fed information, and then it, calculates and throws out the carbon footprint. Is that like is that a subset of your platform already, or that's your main product? Is that the main product?
I think, yeah, that's a bit of a debate we have internally, but I think the data is the product in many ways. The data, I mean, we spin off various applications from it, but the goal, I think, and this is, like I say, debatable internally with us, but you collect all the data and you get more and more and more data, you can have more and more applications spin off of that. So
oh, absolutely, data is king, and this is definitely sort of also like a base I can see that when you're partnering with governments or restaurants or other businesses, to collaborate and use your data as a starting point for them to do, take it off and build it in their ERP system. So that's definitely great. Cool.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunity, I'm sure. Just thinking about it, and this, the menu was a starting point, but there's a lot of ways that this could be used. So this is just, it's easy to explain, and we've done a small project with it. So
That's cool. I just have a follow-up question, just on the menu bit that you talked about. It's very interesting, just of your experience. How has when you approach restaurants and, ask them, it's literally like putting your blood work out, right? So it's as good as displaying it on the menu, saying this is what I'm going to eat. How has the response been of the restaurants? Have they been very open to it? Or so obviously, I would see you being met with reluctance, but how have you bridged that gap?
Yeah, some restaurants, and I think you could imagine in your, where you live, that some restaurants are very positive about this and others aren't very interested in it. And also, the pandemic has been very hard on a lot of restaurants, so they have been reluctant. I would say more for that reason, that they just don't have the energy to do this. And another part which is relevant specific to Canada is that there's legislation being written here to make some of this mandatory in Canada. So some of the companies, I don't know how much it'll affect all restaurants, but some of these companies will eventually be mandated to have this information. So we're helping to create a tool so that it'll be cheap and easy for businesses to deal with that. So that's not necessarily, maybe that would be something that would be picked up in the United States, maybe not, I don't know, but so that's a Canadian issue.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
There can actually be an entire restaurant that is based off of this concept. You guys have that educational pamphlet, that two-sided pamphlet that you shared, right? Where this is what the normal standard is. If you consume lamb and beef and all of these different sort of meats, essentially, there can be an entire restaurant that's created, like a vegan restaurant would be more inclined to do this. There are a lot of vegan restaurants that are popping up, especially around the West Coast. Midwest is coming up too, even in the US. But you can form so many different types of partnerships and just sell your data to them. That it can work. It's a very interesting idea.
For sure. And some of those, when we try to do a display, we try to get a restaurant with a little bit more range of food so that people can see, because and I'm sure if you go to different restaurants, you see that some of them are really, really socially conscious. Like, I know certainly restaurants that they make a big effort to have a social conscience, and you might not be able to show as much there. So we try to go for one with a mix to show the example. But there is a real benefit to that kind of restaurant for sure.
Yeah, and just if I may contribute a little to that effect, primarily if there is, a steakhouse that you're approaching, right? I'm a vegan and I cannot go to a steakhouse with my friends because I literally have French fries to eat. So even from that effect, if you're reaching out to steakhouses or restaurants that are heavily meat inclined, that may also trigger them to think, hey, I literally don't have anything on the menu. Is there something that I can put to just balance off, or include like two very low towards your chain, the other side of the chain, that at least balances off their overall carbon impact, right? If customers choose to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there's increasingly non-meat options. I mean, it's like you can get, like 5-10 years ago, I don't know if you wanted to get like a non-meat hamburger. I don't know that. But now I can just go to the store like anytime and get it. So it's increasingly an option there, and I could definitely see that. And I know one of the major, I know a lot of people in the food industry, and I know they're building a major plant to do that. And just outside of where I live here in Ontario, there's going to be a major plant built here just specifically to do that. So anyway, sorry, I'm going all over the place, but I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. Belle, I know you have a question. Do you want to ask? Maribel, you might be on mute. Okay, we'll come back to her. I have a question more geared towards the restaurant side. So how do they end up, how do you... Oh,
I was locked out of my phone and my pass was very long. So,
no worries. Go for it.
hard to unmute. Yeah, so I have a question because we're more related to the vegetarian versus meat eater part. If you've seen an I guess a difference, someone like I changed to vegetarianism a few years ago, thinking I'm going to help with my carbon footprint, and I met someone who works as an environmental consultant who's a meat eater, and we're having this discussion, and he was telling me it's not that big of a deal, like it doesn't matter so much. In other words, I guess to the overall big picture of how you live your everyday lives in other ways. So anyway, I just thought I heard in the presentation you say depending on how you change your eating habits, it could have a reduction of 75% in your carbon footprint. I'm not sure if I heard correctly, but have you seen a dramatic decrease of someone's carbon footprint by changing their eating habits to more vegetarian options?
I think it has a big impact based on the data that we see. I mean, if a person, in all the things you do in driving and flying, and the average person has 15 tons a year, and you can reduce it by 2 tons just by changing your eating, that's pretty substantial, I think. I mean, so 2 on 15, whatever percentage that is. I mean, that's the overall impact in terms of your entire lifestyle. So I mean, it's not like the only thing. Obviously, if as the world moves towards like electric vehicles and stuff like that, there's other pieces. But I definitely think it's a piece, or at least to be conscious of, and it sends a signal too to companies. I think every time you make a decision, every time you make a purchase, that and I think there's a big enough group of people that are thinking this way now that it's starting to have an impact. Whereas maybe before, maybe it was just a personal decision, but now I think it's starting to impact industry. So then businesses start to think about how do we decrease our carbon emissions too, just to try to keep our customers happy. So it can have like those knock-on effects that you might not think about too in terms of your personal choices. So it has that kind of like collective impact as well. So it does. And then like if I think about like cattle, and you think about cattle in like Brazil, where they had huge fires. It seemed like a long time ago now, but I think it was only a year or two ago. They had huge fires in the rainforest, and I think it was started because they were farmers were trying to increase the amount of fields that they could have for cattle. So you can have impacts like that on the climate as well. So there's all kinds of knock-on effects. So I should let Devika talk. I'm talking way too much.
Yeah, so I would actually like to add a little bit to it. So our mission is to create transparency in the consumer market, which means that we want to show people how much their carbon footprint is whenever they eat something, how much their carbon footprint is. So they can take measure. So they have a choice to either like make lifestyle changes and choose a vegetarian vegan diet, or perform steps to neutralize their carbon footprint. So if they want to like continue eating what they're eating, that's fine. Like they can actually make the informed decision to neutralize their carbon footprint. So it's our main goal is to just give out the information and let consumers decide for themselves like what they want to do with that information.
To that effect, Devika, if I may ask just a follow-up. So what kind of, does your product or tool also tell how to neutralize if they choose to, be on one, side of the food chain?
So as of now, like we have thought about it. We have thought about partnering with people who are like in the business of neutralizing information. Like there are certain projects that work, people who are working in this area. There are some companies and organizations that are working with that area, but we don't, as of now, we don't have any concrete, partnership or anything. So I would not say that this is something that we offer at this moment, but we are also looking forward to join those people who are in the business of neutralizing carbon footprint.
Like, yeah, carbon sequestration, and give people the option of even, of right on. One of the things we've talked about is having it, right at the end of your meal, you have the option to try to pay to offset your emissions. So how you do that is complicated and a whole other massive conversation. But yeah, just want to reiterate what Devika's saying.
Cool, that makes sense.
So are you guys more on the consulting side, or are you more on selling menu side, or what's your business model look like?
Want me to grab that, Devika?
Yeah, so we are more on consulting side at this moment.
Okay, so essentially a restaurant can come to you, be like, hey, we want to make our menu more transparent for our consumer base. Can you help us do that? So then they send you their data, their recipe. I'm guessing that everything is proprietary, and I'm guessing, not proprietary, confidential. So like they can't share their recipes with anyone else, right? So there's that partnership. And then you end up, looking at the carbon footprint for each of their ingredients, compile it, and then you're able to create a menu for them with the data items, and then they share that with their consumers, and then they brand it in a certain way. Then they can brand it in a way that increases your partnerships with other restaurants, and you continue your chain afterwards. Is that right? Like, I'm trying to figure out.
Yes, you got it.
Cool. And then right now, the types of partners that you're looking for are, I'm guessing that they're more like vegetarian, vegan friendly sort of restaurants or franchises. Right now it's in Canada.
We are open to everybody, actually. Like, we are open to everyone who wants to join us in our initiative. And yeah, whoever is like looking forward to give a transparent information to their consumers, welcome in our platform.
Okay, cool. Then how did that initial, you showed us an example of the menu, right? And I think Bria sort of touched on this before, but how did that partnership look like? When was that, and what was the result of that partnership afterwards?
Yeah, so some of the things you mentioned, like we signed in non-disclosure on the menu, just to give them comfort around that. I mean, we're not trying to steal people's grandmother's recipes, and so we signed that, and we were working to track that information and do through a pilot, but the pandemic has created so many shutdowns for the restaurant that we don't know. It's something where we need to come back around to. So to try to get a one-to-one comparison. So with the pandemic and people not going into the restaurant, we don't have good data on that, to be honest. But we have looked at studies when restaurants add calorie information onto their menus. There have been studies done on that, and we found that I think it reduces. Typically, it reduces by about a third the amount that people will eat if they see the calorie information. And you'll have a lot of places too where they won't share that because restaurants they don't want people to know. So we're hopeful that it's sort of in that range based on the academic research, and so that's the relationship. If we got this onto software, the goal would be to have a low, maybe a very low fee, so that they could put their information in and do it on a very large scale with a large number of restaurants. So that's more the vision going forward, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Just to ask one step forward, then, are you envisioning this as a tool? Like you said, Devika, you're more from consulting, or you're basing your role is to be a consultant to restaurants and governments and whoever needs help. But are you looking at it as a product to then bundle and give off for restaurants or conglomerates of restaurants to use the way they want? For example, even governments or other recipients or customers of your platform itself to use the way they want and make their own proprietary versions of it? Or do you expect them to come to you to be able to make these menu changes, data quality, suggestions and so on? I'm just trying to help my.
Sure.
Yeah, the reason why I would say that we want we want to take a centralized approach to data and rather have them come to us is because keeping a central repository of all that data and maintaining that data is easier than giving it as a proprietary software and then make help I mean allowing them to make their own changes. So we you can consider us like mediators who will work with the government, the researchers, etc., and then who will also work as restaurants. So it will be an additional overhead to the restaurants if they maintain all that data and everything. So I mean, just like there are cybersecurity industries, there are other industries who provide like software as a service, platform as a service, etc., etc. So we are just going to be like providing this data as a service as of now. Yeah. Mark, do you want to add to it?
Sure. I'm just I'm very open-minded about it too. You know, that we're finding out more all the time, and every time we have a conversation with someone, you find out a different angle. And I don't have a strict, or I don't think we have a strict path that we feel we have to follow too. That I'm always open to hearing more ideas and more perspectives on it.
No, I hear you, and I am just thinking from if I were in your shoes, right? From initially, you're right, Mark, because of the pandemic and the way restaurants, and I live in Manhattan, I live in New York, and just by where I live, half of what we used to see open are shut down. Some of them, 30% of those shut down, half are shut forever, and just the nature of, New York, there is a new restaurant coming in every other day. You have something new coming up every month. So people are constantly, wanting different kinds of foods or habits and so on. So keeping that centrally with your company is a great idea. And on the other hand, I'm just thinking if it is to do with governments or for them to be using that data in different ways, not just on the restaurant sides, in that aspect it would make sense for to bundle it and ship it to them for a cost. So I'm just thinking out loud. Of course, it's there are lots two ways that this could go.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, that looks like a good idea.
we're doing some we're trying to be bold and do some interesting stuff, and you have to be open to the possibilities, I think.
So just one last question from me, I promise. Just from a pricing perspective, how do you expect to make money? Is it more consulting fees, or like I said, how's your outlook to that?
In terms of my background is accounting originally, so I'll try to jump on this question. We're looking at if this was mandated in Canadian provinces, if we had 30 or 40,000 restaurants that had to come over and use this information, we would try to keep it to a relatively low cost. I'm not sure exactly where that cost point is, but the money to be made on that is on the volume. Maybe we would do it as an annual fee, so that they can change their menu as often as they want. Some restaurants change their menus quite often. So that was, in terms of the menu, that was how we were looking at making money. But we're also open to the possibility of major vendors wanting to, and I think it says it in the slideshow, and it's something we're still talking about. But in terms of ERPs, how people manage their resources, and if they want to work on managing their carbon dioxide, carbon emissions, that we could help with that, and various types of consulting. So we're very open to that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you guys open to more of like a branding idea that I might have of hearing it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So essentially, what I was thinking of was that I know that you said that you're open to all different types of partnerships right now. And yes, I think that's important in certain ways. You can apply yourself in different ways, and especially in the early stages. But also, you guys are talking about like a comparison sort of model where on one end, you want to have a restaurant that shows not only vegan options, but has meat options, so you can see that, oh, instead of eating this meat option, you should eat this vegetarian or vegan option, right? And you can see like the carbon emissions that each type of food is emitting. But I was thinking with more of like the vegan options, even if you end up partnering with all like a restaurant that is all vegan, ultimately they can do a branding play with you guys where if you end up showing the carbon emissions for each food item, even though they would be relatively low for all of the items, and there wouldn't be a comparison to any meat substitutes or any meat or anything on their menu, they can also just say, why are they showing these carbon emission sort of statistics on their menu in the first place? And then you can, your graph honestly is very visual. They can have that similar type of graph in their own branding, whatever that looks like, but they can have a graph that shows, okay, yes, we're all vegan, but this is the reason why we're showing our carbon emissions, because showing these sorts of meat substitutes or meat like lamb and beef and all of that, ultimately it can show that even though we don't have this on our menu in the first place, like this is the reason why we're showing our carbon emissions. So, like you can still partner with all vegan or all vegetarian restaurants and then show, why they're showing the carbon emissions in the first place. It'll be a good branding play.
Yeah, that's a really great idea.
Yeah. Cool. I just didn't want to I didn't want to limit you guys to the options that you had from the beginning, because the vegan and the vegetarian options, yes, a lot of restaurants have vegetarian options on their menu, but I honestly, in my mind, the vegan places are the place to go because they would be more likely to be transparent. The vegan options are already socially conscious. They already care about the environment. So why not take it a step further with transparency? The ones that have meat, actually with restaurants, meat is more expensive, and the price for meat, consuming meat as a consumer, those dishes end up being more expensive than vegan or vegetarian options anyways, right? So those restaurants, those who want to make more money, which everyone does, they would want people to choose the meat options versus the vegetarian options to have extra like $3 or $4 per dish. So that's why, like, I'm thinking that the vegan vegetarian option might be the better way to go, but that's just my thoughts.
Sounds like a good option. Yeah.
Awesome. So, does anyone have any last thoughts or anything before we wrap up? Cool.
Well, just want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to us and your idea and give us all your great questions and attention, and I really appreciate it. And, hopefully and we find that we always end up coming back around and working with people again, and so this has been really great. Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Shivani, for hosting us on your Impactionable platform and giving us an opportunity to showcase our product and what we are working on. Thank you. I'm truly grateful for this opportunity.
You guys are amazing. You're kicking butt, and I love this. I love this idea so much. Thank you for being a part of our community. We're here for action, and we believe in doing. So, what are some of the asks that you have from us?
So the ask that we have from the Impactionable community is that we are looking for researchers and environmentalists who are working in this space, who are working in life cycle assessment of food items. And we are looking to have a conversation with them, join them, take their feedback, and support to add to our database. This is one of the asks. Mark, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, sure. And we're always, and Devika leads us up, we're always looking to talk to investors and that sort of thing. So that's also part of our ask.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to share is that we host social innovation competitions. So if you guys stay in touch with our newsletter and all of that. But essentially we end up partnering with different organizations and hosting these competitions. I think you guys would be a good fit for one of our competitions. So if you're looking for an extra source of funding, be sure to apply to that.
Great.
Sure, thank you.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna wrap up for today. I have a few, announcements for all of you. Ultimately, we end up partnering with new organizations in the social impact space every single week. We help them find jobs. So be sure to check out our social impact job portal and look for the full-time internship, part-time opportunities that are available there. Like I said, we also host competitions, but to stay updated with every single piece of news and information that we have within our community with amazing members like Devika and Mark. Be sure to sign up for our newsletter to stay updated and also join our private Facebook group. We post positive news and information there, share every event, funding opportunity, job opportunity there as well. I've added that to the chat, so please do join that. And then ultimately share these video sessions or just invite as many people as possible to this. We can only spread more good in the world if more people are aware of it. So we really, thank you all for sharing an hour of your Sunday with us today. And thank you, Mark and Devika, for your amazing work in this space. It's going to be great. Thank you.
So much for your kind words and for hosting us. Thank you.